The title of this lecture is Muscle Histology.
It's 6.
If you're talking right now, you're on YouTube. All right.
Hi.
Okay. Muscle histology is the study of the tissues of muscle. So, muscle. I don't think so. Muscle, comma, like other tissues.
I just put muscle history.
Oh boy.
Gosh, dang
Is made of what?
Cells.
Yes. Made of cells. Muscle cells are long and skinny. Like fibers. Therefore,
You're writing so
they are
Oh, I keep messing up.
called muscle fibers. That makes sense, doesn't it? All right. There are 3 types of muscle fibers. The first one is the one that, there's the most of in the body. Those are all the ones that we're really going to name, which are the skeletal muscles. Sometimes they are called striated muscles, S-T-R-I-A-T-E-D. And they look like this.
Are we supposed to draw these two?
Yeah, that'd be good. Like a tube. It's got all these striations on it. If it were a zebra, I wouldn't call them striations. What would I call them? Stripes. And that's what a striation is a stripe. There's a reason for these striations. Under really good microscopy, if you look at these cells, you can actually see these bands or stripes or striations in muscles. And the reason they exist, there are dark bands and light bands. And the reason for those is your muscle tissue at a molecular level is a whole bunch of these protein, basically protein fibers. And they're kind of interwoven with other protein fibers like this, and they overlap. And the sections where they overlap like this are the ones that would produce these dark bands. And the sections where they don't overlap, like right here, there's more light that can get through them, so they appear as lighter colored bands. And the way that your muscles contract is that these dark bands get thicker, because what happens when your muscle contracts?
It gets smaller.
They get smaller because they overlap like that. Okay?
It feels kind of wrinkly.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So there are visible striations. Okay? Now, osteoclasts, if you remember back to those guys, they have a whole bunch of something in them that most cells only have one or none of. Yes. These guys also have a lot of nuclei. Okay? And they're on the outside everywhere, sitting there like bugs or raisins floating all around the outside here. That's not nuclei I'm putting in here. I'm just putting in some dots. But these guys, there are multiple peripheral nuclei. What's the difference between nucleus and nuclei?
Nucleus is one.
Nucleus. That's correct.
This is multiple words.
What's that word?
This word here?
Yeah.
Peripheral. P-E-R-I-P-H-E-R-A-L. Have you guys heard the word peripheral before?
Peripheral vision.
Peripheral vision. When you're looking straight forward, you know, they can test your eyes, whether you're 20/20 or 20/40 or so on and so forth. But if you take the eye tests and whatnot before you to get ready to drive a car, they test your peripheral vision. They flash a little light out to the side and make sure you can recognize, which side that light's on, so they know that you can not just see the stuff in front of you. In other words, you don't have tunnel vision. So peripheral means toward the outside, just like where the lights were in the peripheral vision test. Here on the cells, the nuclei are way out to the outside of the cells because there's so much stuff inside. This thing is so chocked full of the machinery that makes your muscles work. There's no room for the nucleus inside there, so it has to be kind of stuck to the outside. Another thing you need to know about these guys is that they are voluntary. Means we can choose to make them move. All the other muscles, all the muscle types other than this, not so much. Only these guys can we really make them move. The next type of muscle, and this, folks, this is all skeletal muscle, which includes all the ones you have on the sheet that you were to find the origin, insertion, and action on. All of those are skeletal. The next one is only found in the heart. And what's the word for heart? Cardiac. So cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is a type of muscle that does this action.
And you need to draw that as well.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Ask me a
Are
question.
we supposed to know all of this, that worksheet that we got?
You don't need to know the origin, insertion, and action of everything. Yeah, you just need to be able to, if I point to a muscle, be able to say its name. Yeah, that's just to give you guys exposure to origin, insertion, and action, but no, you don't. That'd be way too much. And that's cruel and unusual punishment. The law protects you from things like that. All right.
It
Okay.
also has stripes?
It does have stripes, so visible striations. What else is weird about this thing? It splits. Yeah, these cells will branch. Again, multiple peripheral nuclei. Cardiac muscle, voluntary or involuntary?
Involuntary.
Oh, isn't that great news?
Hope so.
Otherwise, you'd be having to sit there the whole time. First of all, it'd be a miracle if you lived this long. Second of all, you'd be like beat, 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 beat. Think about something else, like maybe I get some nachos later. Dead. Just ugh. Just glad this guy does his thing.
But you don't always think about moving your hands and stuff. You use your hands, muscle movement.
There you go.
No,
What about going to sleep?
I don't have brains.
You don't remember going to
Oh,
sleep.
yeah.
That'd be a little rough.
You wouldn't live too long.
The last kind is smooth. It's really smooth looking. They called it smooth muscle. This one looks really different than the other guys. One of these things is not like the other.
Looks like an eyeball.
Like really kind of squinted.
Yeah, like
No striations. And I'm going to try to draw this with some pencil so it's real light and faded so you can see it but recognize these aren't considered striations. What I'm drawing is something that's like a kind of a crosshatch pattern to show you how this muscle is arranged, because these kind of overlap and they shorten by overlapping. These muscles shorten by these bands that wrap around, and each of these kind of cross patterns like this, those bands get shorter and it pulls the whole cell in on itself like that. They're spindle shaped. And it occurred to me last hour, people didn't know what a spindle was. It can be a couple of different things, but like what they use to make yarn out of wool is a spindle. It spins. It's wider in the center than it is at the ends. Sometimes like on a stairwell or banister, those things are called spindles too, that like underneath the railing and whatnot. Not always shaped like this. There's a single central nucleus. And are these voluntary or involuntary?
Voluntary.
Involuntary. Good question. Any idea where you might find this guy?
Brain.
A brain doesn't have any muscle.
Could it be like your stomach?
Yes, your stomach. All your digestive tract. And if you don't know, the digestive tract is the name for the tube that leads from the mouth and goes all the way to the anus and includes every stop along the way. Stomach, large intestine, small intestine, esophagus. So all of that's lined with smooth muscle. You had breakfast this morning. You had lunch a couple hours ago. Your breakfast is further down the line. Your lunch is probably still in your stomach, getting worked over by the smooth muscle in there that's contracting and squeezing and digesting it. But the fact that your breakfast is no longer in there, also the result of smooth muscle. It's being sent through your small intestines right now as waves of small muscle are contracting to push it along. So digestive tract and pretty much everywhere else. Everywhere that's not your heart and not your skeletal muscle. Other examples would be like the urinary bladder. It contracts when you pee. Like the uterus, smooth muscle. There's a lot of different areas where you'd find smooth muscle. But which one of these do you think is going to be the focus of our unit? Skeletal muscle. Those are the ones that we're naming. We'll look at this a little bit when we get into studying the heart and this and the digestive system. Okay. Now, we're going to start in the bottom left-hand corner of your paper.
What?
But before we get there,
Oh my god, I did not know.
my oh my.
What, you say bottom left hand, like as
Yeah.
in very, very?
Yeah, try to get to the very bottom left-hand. My oh my.
We're trying to get there, or we should start there?
You should start there. You should start there.
Why didn't you?
My oh my.
Why didn't you?
These two prefixes both mean muscle, and then we're going to start down there. Okay. So you see myoglobin, myosin, endomysium, myoplex. All those things are related to muscle. Okay. Now, my oh my, muscle. Bottom left-hand corner. You should draw a couple of lines. These are microscopic molecules or proteins. The proteins here are called myofilaments. They're really, really small. Microscopes can't even really see these effectively by themselves. Okay. Myofilaments come together in great big bundles. And those great big bundles of myofilaments all the way through are called myofibrils. Have you guys ever heard of Russian nesting dolls?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like one doll inside of another, inside of another, inside. That's kind of how these are. Except it's not one doll inside. It's like every step is like thousands. So there's thousands of these inside of one of those. There's thousands of these inside of one of these things. And what these are. And I'm oversimplifying by just drawing a dozen or so of them in there. Okay.
That's a big one of those.
What are those? What is that, gang?
That's big.
Give you a hint. It's long and skinny.
It's a muscle.
It is a muscle fiber.
Just a muscle fiber?
Uh-huh. Muscle fiber or muscle cell. So this is where the cells are. In fact, to help you, let's draw a few peripheral nuclei on there. Like, hey, look at me. I'm on the periphery and I'm a nucleus. Why do we start all the way down here? Because of this. Okay. Next one's bigger.
I'm running
I know.
Muscle itself?
Are we supposed to go?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet.
This is a bundle of muscle cells. It is called a fascicle.
Oh, what about?
Fascicle, which is a bundle of.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's awesome. Bundle of muscle fibers. Okay. Fascicle. Mm-hmm.
Isn't there a diagram of this in the book?
What does
Yes,
it
there
say
is.
under muscle fiber? Does that say cell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it say bundle of muscle fibers?
You got it.
Fibers?
And then the fascicles come together to make this thing.
Oh.
A muscle?
Is that the last thing we're drawing?
Yep.
No, thank you.
Otherwise, we needed bigger paper. And this whole thing right here. You guys understand why I'm drawing these circles?
Because of
Yes.
other fibers.
Yeah, it's like each individual piece, and this is the whole muscle.
Wait, so this one just goes all the way up?
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's a picture of this in the textbook that Cody was saying.
What's going on?
Yeah. Here's how they draw it. Better than me. But here's the fibers, and there's the fascicle, and there's the whole muscle. But if you go down a little further, within the fibers themselves, you've got the myofibrils, and within those you have the filaments.
It really does look like Sandy's house. I'm gonna think of that every time I see it.
All right. Questions?